Morning, all. Welcome to the Node. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me, as always, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific and noon Eastern, is David. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing well, Mike. Doing real well. Was walking around with a bunch of complete random strangers last night, and it's always fun when you're wandering around a beach town with a bunch of people you met yesterday. So it was a
You
good
know
time.
what? You got to start somewhere. You got to meet somebody for the first time. Every time.
First time, every time.
60% of the time it works every time.
What was the name of that one? What was it? It
That
was
was
called.
Anchorman.
Oh, yeah. But
He's talking about.
the
Go ahead.
cologne, Sex
Yeah, it's Sex
Panther.
Panther.
Dude,
Yeah,
that's
he's
right.
like Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh
Hilarious.
man, I know.
Well, so I kind of went a little bit of a different route for today's show. So, we're going to touch on a little bit of news, but I want to focus today, and it's something that we talked about before, is I want to start diving into some protocols, some DeFi protocols, and how this ecosystem is evolving. And so I kind of picked two because there's one that I've kind of fallen out of having a solid knowledge base on, and we've talked about it a couple of times and voiced some concerns about it, due to TVL, drop off in TVL, things like that, which is Plume. And there's another one that popped on my radar today that's brand new on Solana called Backpack, and it is exploding when it comes to in its focus on compliance. So there's kind of this rise in DeFi of some of these protocols, wanting to be part of the new financial system, and part of that is compliance. AML, KYC, all the regulatory, being in alignment with all the regulatory bodies, getting the proper licensing, all of those sorts of things. So love it or hate it, there's a place for it, and for institutions to be able to participate, they have, these platforms are going to have to be compliant. So I figure we might, dive.
Boo, boo that
You know,
man.
I know,
Boo.
boo this man, boo this man. so yeah, that's what we're going to dive into today. But before we dive into that, let's introduce our socials. So first off, if you want to join the conversation, the chat that you see up on the screen, come on over here to YouTube, and you can find us at the Node Network, all one word, super easy to find. So pop on over here, jump in the chat, ask us questions, tell us we're full of shit, whatever you want to say. We
I
welcome
like
all
those
comers.
people the most. Those
What's
people
that?
are the best. The ones that say that we're full of shit, like those are the best ones, like because they're the most
Yeah.
entertaining.
Well, and if you just want to troll, I mean, whatever. I'm probably going to ignore you. But if you actually have intelligent shit to say, and you're calling, you're saying that we don't know what we're talking about, or that we're wrong, and you have facts to back it up, we 100%, like David says, we welcome that here. Unlike most channels where we're not going to shout you down, we're not going to make fun of you, we're not going to anything like that. As long as you come at us with facts and data, we I mean, I would rather have a chat, full of people that are pushing back on what we're saying, as long as they have, actual a basis for it, other than just screaming FUD and whining and crying. I could care less, about all that. But so yeah, jump on in.
Agreed 100%.
Yep. And so, in any place that doesn't welcome opposing thoughts, and not just in crypto, don't walk, run, because those are echo chambers, and those are places, in politics or religion or anything. If they don't welcome people challenging their point of view, it means that they can't back up their point of view. So, with that being said, you can join us here on the Node Show, the Node channel, at Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can join me and Jeff on Crypto and Chill Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can join Jeff on his show where he talks about early projects and farming, token airdrops on the Blockchain Report Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. At this is actually, I'm going to change this to 11 a.m. we're going to bump this right up against the back end of this show so that we can do a live redirect to it.
You're bumping the back end again, Mike. Is that
It's all about bumping the back end, but but it only works if it's consensual. All right, Sovereign Soil Saturday at 6 p.m. That's where myself and sometimes Drew joins me, and we talk about homesteading and emergency preparedness. The live market wrap with David is Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific. He's Eastern time, so he does it at the end of the when the market's closing. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he is actually taking Ellie, who's in our chat right now, one of our longtime community members. We selected her to go through David's one-on-one coaching course. It's a paid coaching course, but we're doing it with her for free to show what all that entails. So if you want to join us for that, Saturday Night Fever with Jeff. He's a DJ. He is interviewing a bunch of other DJs that he knows, doing tutorials, and sometimes just spinning music. Just trying to entertain people, give people a place to hang out on Saturday night if they just want to stay in. The Red Pill tonight. Super excited about that. There's plenty to talk about. This is where myself, David, Jeff, sometimes Colin, Drew stops by, my brother Taylor. Jay was on the last one. We might have him on again tonight if he's available. But it's basically where we just have drinks. People smoke it if they got it, and we debate. We talk about current events, politics, religion, all those things you're not supposed to talk about. Sometimes it gets heated. Always respectful, and we're always friends at the end. There are places still where you can have adult conversations and still be friends at the end of the day and have opposing thoughts. Gaming and chill. So Jay and Ellie actually stream live on Wednesdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific. And they've been doing Arc Raiders, and they're looking into doing some other games, just to kind of mix it up. And Ellie, it looks like she reached out to DeFi Kingdoms, which is a Web3 crypto-based game, and got an interview with them. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see. So really excited about that. We'll see how that pans out. Next up,
really cool.
Yeah, it is. I'm really liking how this network is. We're starting to get so much traction. And all these different genres.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. It's super cool. It's a lot of fun.
It is. And then if you want to follow us on X, it's at the Node channel, all one word. The Node network was already taken, so I had to go with channel. And then last but definitely not least, come on, share it. There we go. Is our official website, thenode.pro, that David's currently building out. So this is where we post links to news that we talk about on this main show, where we have links to DeFi University. It's a 100% no charge, learning learning center.
It's a learning center.
Yeah, it's a learning center. If you want to learn about traditional finance, banking, DeFi, crypto, wallets, all of that stuff. We don't charge anything for it. We have a lot of that here where we are genuinely here to educate the community. So, our Discord is not gated. There's no cost there. DeFi University, there's no cost. For the one-on-one private coaching, that's very intensive, and that takes quite a bit of time on David's part. That is a paid service. The AI newsletter, once that fully launches, will be $20 a month, but super sexy. You choose the assets you are interested in, not the ones I'm interested in, not the ones David is interested in. You can have all meme coins if you want. And it's going to give you the trading ranges. It's going to give you the liquidity pool ranges. It's going to give you the social media posts that are trending. It's going to give you the news and hyperlinks to all of it. So you can generate that, once a day, and have that delivered to your email, or you can just, read it on the browser. And within 5-10 minutes, you can have your morning coffee or tea and get all spun up on not just crypto, also, stocks, commodities, anything that the ticker for, it will generate that for you. So super sexy. I haven't seen anything else out there like it. And then last but not least,
and it's almost done. It's almost done, Mike. It's very close, man. It's very close. Yeah.
I'm super excited for that because
Me too.
that means I'm not going to have to get up at 5 in the morning to build our current newsletter anymore. I'll
Well,
probably still get up at like 5:36, but yeah, it's if I decide to sleep in, it's not a showstopper.
gotcha.
The store. So we are going to be launching. It's going to take probably another couple weeks. We have some things that are much higher on the priority list, but we're going to be launching mugs, shirts, hoodies, all that stuff with with all of our logos and all of that stuff on there. So a lot of really cool things going on, here at the Node. So with that being said, let's jump into this. So this is kind of what got me going today on Plume. So, we're going to give the good and the bad on this project, like we try to do with everything. I want to make sure that you're fully knowledgeable. And then still, I'm going to highly encourage you to do your own research. But this altcoin buzz said while you were watching other coins, Plume just rewired finance. Again, I'm just going to read this and then we're going to dive into it. In a single month, 6 billion plus in EtherFi customer deposits now earn RWA yields on chain via Superstate's USCC fund. Plume employees can now receive their salary in shares of regulated money market fund, tokenized payroll, live now. They joined MasterCard's crypto partner program alongside 85 plus institutions shaping the future of digital finance. Their general counsel testified before Congress explaining how Plume already exceeds compliance standards used by multi trillion dollar firms. They expanded RWA yields to Solana via Perina's stablebank, with Layer Zero handling cross chain coordination. This isn't a roadmap. This isn't a white paper promise. This happened in March 2026. Neo Finance isn't a narrative. Plume is making it infrastructure. So again, this is obviously trying to hype up the project, and some of it is I went and I verified it, and so this is what I found. So, um, so the Plume report, from narrative to infrastructure, it says Plume has officially moved past the roadmap phase. It's currently the largest RWA ecosystem by wallet count, 280,000 plus, and is actively integrating. But that data point, I don't like it. And again, I'm going to give the good and the bad, because wallet count, anybody can create wallets. Like I could create thousands of wallets right now if I wanted to. So I don't see that as growth. Now, active wallets, or wallets holding balances, if you start getting into the more granular detail, that's what I want to see. Well, I mean, would you agree with that, David?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Plume, Mike, I'm
Well, I mean, just in general with wallet counts, like when people
oh,
use
oh,
that as
oh,
a unit of
100%.
measure.
Yeah, it's not a valid proxy because, you see this not just with Plume, but you see it with like, Solana. You saw it a lot with Solana, during the height of the meme coin craze on Solana, where people were talking about, oh, look at all the users because of all the active wallets.
Yeah,
And they're not the same thing. Like, an active wallet does not equal a user.
yeah,
One user, one person could have potentially thousands of wallets. And now
exactly.
with all these AI agents, Mike, I don't
Oh
know how to
shit.
distinguish between,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
No,
don't know.
absolutely. And like I said, I want to point out, I want to call bullshit whenever I see it. That's just how we operate here. So I call bullshit on that. The institutional flywheel, EtherFi integration, over 6 billion in deposits can now access RWA yields via Plume's Nest protocol. This began with a $25 million strategic allocation into the in basis vault powered by Superstate's USCC fund. Are you able to find anything on that, David? Because I mean that I know that Nest protocol is a very, very strong RWA play. There is a lot going on with that, because that is the one that we reported on, where there's a Morpho integration on base network. There's a Solana connection there. Now there's an EtherFi connection. There's a lot going on with that Nest protocol, and that is built on Plume's layer one.
Right. And so what I've been able to find here, Mike, is just starting off always over on DeFi Llama.
Mhm.
And I found the Nest Credit Protocol.
Well,
It's
go ahead
a
and pop that up. Let's share it.
awesome. Let's take a look. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. We're going to
I
hop
always love
in.
the info that you find.
Yeah, man, this is going to be interesting. So, the first thing I want to share, Mike, is just a little bit about Plume. And, here's the thing that I want to stress. You got to double check even DeFi Llama's data
Yes.
because I don't understand how it is that they're, citing $13 million TVL right here. You see that?
Yeah. Now
So they're
scroll down.
right. But then you scroll down and it's like, okay, but you got 200 million in stable coins on
Well,
Plume.
and then keep scrolling down and hover over the question mark next to the TVL on like that first one.
Mhm.
RWA protocols are not factored in
How
to
does that
that.
make
I don't know. I found that this morning.
Do you know what it could be? It could be that a lot of these RWA protocols, they hold assets off chain. A lot of them do. So that could be part of the reason why, because it's if it's not on chain and it's just an oracle bringing data on chain,
Mhm.
then maybe I'm spitballing here. I'm
Yeah,
not a
no, no, but I mean because I mean we've pointed this out before, that massive drop off in TVL, and I
right.
almost sold my plume because of it, and I decided to hold on to it. And but now, after actually digging into this, like you said, those that stable coin is like $200 million plus of stable coins, and then none of the RWA, and that's what Plume is. Plume is an RWA play. That's it's purpose built for RWAs, and that's not factored in to the TVL metric. Then I mean, to me, that's concerning. But yes, please let's look at the price because that's
Yeah, so but here's the thing for me, even with this, like I'm as we speak conducting some deep dive research into the Plume network and ecosystem.
yeah.
So this is running as we speak, but when I take a look at just, the oh, it just finished. Awesome. So when I take a look over here at the price of Plume, uh, obviously, going from 14 cents to, a penny is not good if you've been holding this and looking forward to like price appreciation, right? So obviously that's not good, but I've seen so many of these tokens die and then like a phoenix reborn again. Like so it's
Yeah.
just it's the narrative, man. Like if there is suddenly, maybe at the end of this bear, we start to get like the first green shoots and
Mhm.
people start to talk about, hey, what Plume is building is actually kind of interesting. They've got all of this, I guess it looks to me like an RWA chain.
Mhm.
So maybe with real clarity from Congress about what is okay and what is not, then you might see some of these RWA chains like Plume start to take off. And the challenge for me, though, Mike, and this is something that we were talking about on Slack a little bit, or that you were talking about,
Yeah.
is okay, let's say that there is a hot new narrative. It is RWAs
Mhm.
because of clarity around what's legal and what's not. But even if there is, how does that really feed through to the token price? If we're talking about the Plume token, how does the
Yes.
Plume token itself benefit from additional assets on chain or additional assets on its layer one chain or additional transaction volume
Did, did,
or
did
additional
did you
TVL?
pull up anything about the tokenomics to answer that? Because I have some stuff that I pulled up, but if you already have it,
Yeah, so if you want to start, then what I'm doing here, I'm just sharing this. This is the deep dive research that I just put together using Google Gemini. This is extremely useful, this deep research mode. It's like having a team of 20 research slaves.
well,
You just tell them,
well,
get to
well,
work.
go ahead and
It's
share what you
great.
found with tokenomics because that really is important to understand. It's like okay, and I was talking with somebody wispy this morning in the chat about Ondo, where it's like Ondo's doing great things, the business, as far as tokenization and stuff like that. But there's nothing in the tokenomics that, even if it becomes like the everything, tokenizer, there's nothing in the tokenomics that translates over to the token holders. It's basically a governance token. So, I'd be interested to see what your data or your research pulls up, to where, Plume, how does the success of this layer one, if it becomes, if, Nest, Nest protocol ends up, becoming a major player in tokenized assets, and Plume becomes, a part of that. Is there a way that success, that revenue, those fees? And I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. Um, how does that translate to token holders? Do we share in that success, or are we just funding, them building their business, like, like somebody
XRP.
football,
Like
supports?
Ripple. Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of like Ripple a little bit. Yeah. So, one thing that I really like to do, Mike, whenever I'm, learning something new, is I'll start off over here in Gemini, and I'll put together, a research report. And so usually these research reports are around 15 or 20 pages long.
mm,
Um, After I've created the research report, I'll throw it into Google Docs. And so, now I've got something that I can easily read through, and it looks like this one is 12 pages long. But sometimes just reading through it is a little bit too time consuming, and I'm a busy guy. I got stuff going on, Mike,
yeah.
so I can't be sitting around reading research papers. So what I do instead is I'll throw it into Notebook LM. And once it's in Notebook LM, I can turn it into a video overview, a slide deck, some infographics, because, short form video content has basically made my attention span that of like a Tootsie Fly. So that means I need like I need pictures and big words. Okay. Like I can't sit and read stuff anymore. It's like completely rotted my brain. So check this out. Now we've got a picture. And I think this will be useful for us to just understand exactly what it is that Plume is, in the first place. So I don't know if you guys can read this. So I'm just going to go ahead and read through this real quick.
Can you zoom
So
in at all anymore?
yeah, it's not gonna
Okay.
let me zoom in,
No,
but you know
no,
what
no
I
worries.
can do? Zoom. There we go. Is that a little bit better there? If
A little bit.
yeah, so here, let me see if I can zoom and then move
Yeah,
this. How
perfect.
about that? Better?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so check this out. The Plume network has evolved into this RWA-Fi infrastructure, which is really, really cool. But again, we're trying to get to the bottom of how does the Plume network succeeding feed through to holders of the Plume token? See, these are two
Because
completely
otherwise, why are we buying the token? I mean,
right.
yeah.
These see the success of the network and a number go up. Those can be two completely different things. So that's what we're looking to dive into today.
Mhm.
So here's what we got. It's evolving into RWA-Fi infrastructure, which is pretty cool.
Mhm.
But it's synthesizing DeFi liquidity. So okay, we got a bunch of buzzwords here. Synthesizing high velocity DeFi liquidity with rigorous TradFi compliance. Oh man, that
Well,
compliance.
let me make a comment on that, because this is something I found that, and I knew about it, but it's key. So there is SEC compliance, which is going to be important with, traditional finance and RWAs and, institutions. Plume's status as an SEC registered transfer agent, which it has fully in place now, allows it to legally manage cap tables for digital securities. Only a few other chains have gotten this, licensing, and what it allows is, it the it anything that's tokenized on Plume is is recognized as a legal contract between, like, so like if you buy a tokenized stock, it's legally binding, just like if you bought a stock in the traditional, sense. If you went to a stockbroker and bought it, and you owned it, whatever. It's a, it legally, the tokenized version is the same as the regular version. So it's important, an important thing to get. So go ahead.
Yeah, something that as you were speaking, Mike, something that I'm always thinking about is the difference between like cool or interesting tech
Hmm.
and value. Like,
Yes.
just because like, it's an SEC registered transfer agent that can legally manage shareholder records and integrate directly with this DTCC for, becoming a source of institutional truth,
Hmm.
even though Plume can do that, here's what I think. It's almost like a product. That feature is almost like a feature within a product. What is the moat around that? How many other companies or chains or protocols can compete and do the exact same thing? Can much, much larger?
Eventually, I mean, if they get, if they apply and they get the license, I mean, technically anybody could, but currently there's only like four or five.
Got it. Okay. So now let me ask you this question. Why does the SEC registered transfer agent, mean number go up? It's kind of like Ripple's partnerships. You're always
It,
hearing about
it,
partnerships, and you know what I
doesn't
mean?
necessarily mean, well, you know what? There is a way that it could mean number go up with adoption, and that's an if, with adoption, the way that the Plume network, works is that, fees are burned, so, and that's paid for in Plume. So if there's enough adoption, and network usage, every time tokenized stock is bought or sold or, whatever, then, Plume is burned. So potentially, again, potentially, less Plume, number go up.
Okay. So the challenge for me with that is it's so vague and
Oh, no,
ambiguous. You,
absolutely. No,
you know what I mean? Like,
that's just, I mean, that's a lot better than, hoping that a token has a narrative that gets hyped enough that people FOMO into it to make the price go up. And, because, like Ondo or, like XRP, where there's nothing in the tokenomics that, make price go up, or, that share profits with the token holders. It's just, it's a step above some of those. I'm not saying that, it's something that you should run out and buy, but it's just there is something in the tokenomics that could make the price go up.
yeah, for me, when I look at this, SEC registered transfer agent and, unbypassable protocol compliance and this so-called Plume passport, I don't see anything here that
Mhm.
makes me think number go up at all. Because the only thing that matters to me
Mhm.
is I've got to dig in to the actual tokenomics of the Plume token.
Mhm.
So, speculating about, adoption or a reduction in supply or anything, that is, I need something more concrete to be able to make an investment decision. And all of these, crypto protocols that market themselves by
Well,
talking about,
keep
hey,
reading. I mean, you've only gotten to the first step, and you're
oh
making,
yeah,
you know, you're
yes,
you're
oh yes.
summarizing and, coming to a conclusion without taking in all the data.
Oh, 100%. So I'm just trying to, describe how I think about, number go up or tokenomics for a
Oh, no, no, no,
protocol.
absolutely. But, it's like, let's take all the data in, and then we can, debate and summarize. And
Okay, so here, Mike, can you see this a little bit better? I just want to make sure that everyone can see this because
if you can zoom in, I
a
mean, I
little
can read,
bit.
but it's a little
Uh,
bit small.
okay,
That's fine. That's fine.
is that better there? Awesome. Okay, so all I did is I started off on, in Gemini. I
Mhm.
created that research report, and then I threw it into Notebook. I just created that infographic that we were taking a look at, and now I'm just waiting on the video content and the slide deck so that we can take a look at that together. And in the meantime, because I gave Notebook all of that research context over
Mhm.
here, you can see it. I'm hovering over it right now. The
Yeah, yeah,
Plume Network Deep Dive for
yeah, yeah.
2026. it's now got a bunch of context, so I can start to ask questions of that research report here in
Perfect.
Notebook. So I asked it, tell me about the tokenomics of the Plume token.
Mm.
Easy. And so it says here the Plume token operates with a fixed total supply of 10 billion tokens, with approximately 4.8 billion in circulation as of early 2026. Okay, so right off the bat, that tells me that there must be some type of either unlock schedule, or that this is a high FDV or high float, high FDV, low float. So what does that mean? High FDV, low float. Well, high
It
FDV,
means potentially there's a bunch of coins that are, in some kind of escrow or something like that that could eventually be dumped on the market depending on the vesting schedule, or, if VCs hold them, or, the team or something like that.
exactly, exactly. And so that's not good. Usually,
No.
that's really not good.
Yeah.
So
Now, now would that include staking?
I think that if you've got 4.8 billion in circulation, that would also include the tokens that are being staked right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But if there's a total max supply of 10 billion, and there's still 50% of those 10 billion tokens left to essentially unlock and come into circulation, that is a lot of inflation that is on the horizon for Plume token holders. So now let's get into the pillars of Plume utility, because this is something that we're always thinking about. Like, okay, what can we actually use this token for within the ecosystem? How does this token? Why is this token needed? Like, there are so
Yeah.
many protocols, Mike, that have launched tokens that do nothing.
Yeah. No,
You know,
like at best, they're a governance token.
yeah. So they're basically memes.
Yeah.
But so it says here, the Plume utility within the Plume network, the token functions as a fundamental financial primitive in four key ways. Okay, great. Let's learn about those four key ways. Number one, network gas. So all interactions on the Plume layer one, such as minting digital securities. Oof, I don't know about that word, Mike. So
What's that?
what can digital securities?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so like here's the thing. I still don't know what's legal and what's not when it comes to, shitcoinery. Like, the altcoin space, right?
Well, nobody does, because they're still, they're still writing that legislation.
Right. So that was just a kind of a red flag for me. Okay, we're talking about digital securities now. Oof, okay. Um, all interactions on the Plume Layer 1, such as minting digital securities or redeeming tokenized treasury bills, require Plume to pay for transaction costs. Okay, so on its face, that seems like it could be a net positive for token holders, but not necessarily. Because as we just read, there's a 10 billion token supply, but only half of them are in circulation. So if there's 5 billion tokens that are being unlocked. Maybe the unlock schedule is monthly, maybe it's quarterly. I'm not quite sure. Maybe there's an unlock cliff. We would need to dig into that. But
I have that pulled up whenever you're ready.
oh, great. Yeah. So can we take a look at that? I'm
Yeah.
really, yeah.
So basically, when it comes to the token supply that's not in circulation, it looks like 39% of it is in community and ecosystem. So that's developer grants, funding projects, building on Plume, liquidity incentives, rewards for users providing liquidity in the Nest yield protocol, staking rewards, inflationary emissions to secure the network. Um, Early investors and backers, 21%. The cliff, a period, usually 1 year from the token generation event, where it says where zero tokens are released. Linear vesting, after a cliff, tokens are released monthly or quarterly over 2 to 3 years, as early as 2026. Many of these are locked in vesting contracts. Core team and contributors, 20%. To ensure the founders and developers stay aligned with the project's success, their tokens are locked. This is a standard industry anti dump measure. These are usually the last tokens to fully enter circulation, often vesting over a 4 year period. Foundation treasury of 13%. These are the rainy day funds. In late 2025, Plume moved these tokens to Fireblocks and Anchorage institutional grade custody to enhance security. They are used for strategic partnerships, maintaining the network's financial stability, and operational costs and legal compliance, like their SEC transfer agent status.
Mike, you see what I found on the
Yeah,
screen? So this
their vesting
is
schedule.
yeah, this is from Tokenomist, and
Nice.
this is really, really cool.
Yes.
So this is the release schedule for
Hmm.
Plume tokens, and here we
So
are.
so important.
Yeah, so this is super, super important.
So those
And
that don't understand what we're talking about with vesting, sorry, I just want to preface this.
mhm, mhm.
So vesting is whenever you have VCs or early investors or anything like that. Often there's what's called a vesting schedule. They even have this with stocks. Or if you're with a startup or something like that, and you get shares in the company, there's usually a vesting schedule so that you just can't dump. So they have to mature, and it can be whatever period of time. And so basically, what this is showing, and what David's about to go over, is when these tokens that are basically locked, when they unlock and potentially could be dumped on the market. So go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. That's the thing that we've got to be on the lookout for. And this Tokenomist website gives me an insight summary. I'm sure generated by AI, so you would need to verify these data, but this is a good starting point. It says on April 9th, so that's today,
Yeah.
167 million Plume tokens worth $1.5 million will unlock across core contributors, ecosystem, foundation, treasury, and investors. So and then over the past 30 days, 208 million tokens were unlocked across 5 events. And Plume is only 54% through its release schedule,
Mhm.
with 5.46 billion of the total 10 billion tokens released so far. And the project has raised $20 million in funding across 2 rounds from 27 investors. So, hey, that's a positive thing. But this tells me that this might be some type of VC chain. And I don't know that to be true, but that would make a lot of sense when I look at the token because, these VC chains, VC coins tend to look like this, just dumpy, 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 straight down. Um, so, yeah, but if we take a look at the unlock schedule here, it looks as though over the next couple of months, we're just going to see the supply inflate. You see
Mhm.
that? So now we're in August.
So
I don't know if
the translation of that is sell pressure.
yeah, I mean I would expect that to translate into selling pressure. I just zoomed in here a little bit so that we can maybe see this a bit more clearly, but this white line, this is this month. And so if we just move forward a little bit, you see the number of
Mhm.
plume available in supply.
Mhm.
So by the end of this year, the supply will have inflated by an additional 2 billion tokens.
Mhm.
So that's just over the next 10 months, or it's April, so over the next 8 months, we're going to see another 2 billion Plume tokens come into circulating supply, which means, hey, anyone who holds those tokens, they could sell them. And so that
Yeah.
could mean additional.
And to be fair, it doesn't mean they will. It just means that they'll be unlocked and that they can sell them.
Right. And so, if I just want to get a percentage amount real quick. So if we know that there's 5.4 billion in supply now,
Mhm.
so I'm just going to go, if we know that there's going to be 2 billion released over
Yeah,
the next 8 months, and we know that there's 5.4 billion currently in supply, well,
that's 10.
then it's
Oh,
37%.
sorry,
So
37.
so 37%. So this token is going to inflate by 37% over the next 8 months. So that is because right now, if you've got 5.4 billion, but by the end of the year, an additional 2 billion will
Yeah,
come
yeah.
into circulation, then that's a
Sorry, for some reason
37%.
I was thinking 50. I don't know why.
It's all good. It's math.
Yeah,
You gotta do
first.
the maths.
Yes,
So yeah, but I mean that's a big inflation rate,
yes.
just over the next 8 months. So the reason why it was so important for us to dig into this just real quick is because if we're taking a look at these pillars of Plume utility, right? If we're trying to understand like what's the direction of the Plume token in US dollar terms,
Yes.
and we know that there's a lot of inflation about to hit the market,
Mhm.
and we know, okay, well, there's the inflation, but it's used for network gas fees. Is the use for network gas fees, minting digital securities or redeeming T-bills going to consume, an additional 2 billion Plume tokens to pay for transaction costs?
Probably
Uh,
not.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. This is just the way that I think about this stuff,
Oh,
right?
no, no. I mean, this is a, purely logical way of thinking about it. And that's, that's why we're here is,
Yep.
we're pointing out the good and the bad.
Okay, and then you've got staking and validation. So users can secure the network by staking Plume to validators. In 2026, the staking mechanism provides an expected baseline yield of approximately 6% for token holders. Okay, so here's the problem with that. If the baseline yield for staking is 6%, but we know that over the next 8 months, the
It's
supply
already
is going to
7.
inflate, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like
It's just,
that
yeah, that's a net negative.
again, the maths don't math. Like
Yeah.
it's not mathing.
No,
The
the
mathing.
maths, but it doesn't align with a bullish stance, as far as price.
Right. And remember, price is driven by, tokens at the margin. So if you've got, most of that supply staked,
Mhm.
but all the rest of the supply that is not staked is just, people dump it as soon as they can,
Mhm.
well, number go down. So, and then here we've got governance. So token holders have voting rights on protocol upgrades, such as the planned V2 sharding implementation. Now, I got to say, Mike, whenever I see this word sharding, shards, it makes you think of something
I
completely
think
different.
of sharding.
Sharding.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't want to shard.
No, no sharding. So, such as the planned V2 sharding implementation and the distribution of $25 million RWA-Fi ecosystem fund. So they've got voting rights. Okay, great. Awesome. Voting rights. Meh. All right. And then you got RWA-Fi collateral. Plume serves as base collateral in real world asset lending protocols. So users can lock up their Plume to borrow stables. Oh, that's a horrible idea. Which they can then use to buy more tokenized assets. Here's why that's a horrible idea. So if we hop on over here to the chart of Plume, and then instead of looking at this on a daily, if I just zoom into a 4-hour chart, so we get some more recent data that we're looking at here. And let's just bring this into view a little bit so we can just see like, year to date.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is year to date. So if you were to take your Plume and collateralize it on one of these money markets on the Plume network
Mhm.
and borrow dollars against it, that is a levered long.
Mhm.
You are trading. So if you put up Plume as collateral, and then let's say you borrow 50% against it in USDT or USDC, that is a 2x levered Plume long position. So I just want to make it really, really clear that, borrowing against a collateralized asset is this is not risk free. That is a trade that
Mhm.
someone is entering when they do something like that. And so what could happen? Well, look at the volatility. Volatility, there's a
Mhm.
lot of volatility here. If we just measure from peak to trough year to date, Plume is down 56% from
Mhm.
peak to trough year to date. Imagine if at the start of the year you had collateralized a bunch of Plume, borrowed
Mhm.
50% against it. Well, you would have gotten liquidated. So you really need to just be super, super careful, um, because in the research, it's talking about using Plume as base collateral. Well, usually when you use collateral, you want to
Mhm.
make sure that that collateral is not super, super volatile.
Mhm.
Because if that collateral is super volatile, well, then if you borrow stables against it, borrowing those stables, it's almost like a brick wall.
Yeah.
And if the price dumps, then, hey, you know what? You're going to lose your collateral. So, got to be super careful with that. And let's see. So it says here users can lock up their Plume to borrow stablecoins, which they can then use to buy more tokenized assets. Of course they can. Not a good idea, though. And circulation and inflationary dynamics. So let's talk about that a little bit. By the end, see, this is what we just saw. By the end of 2026, the expectation is 7.3 billion tokens in circulation. So that's a 37% increase in supply from where we are now. Um, we got a little bit here about valuation and market challenges. So it says the token faces significant market pressure, having experienced a 95% decline from its 2025 all-time high. These massive supply unlocks in 2026 present another valuation challenge that requires the network to rapidly accelerate its TVL. So Plume's strategy to absorb this new supply relies on moving billions in institutional capital onto the chain. And as more institutions use the network, it creates a natural buy side demand for Plume to cover. Bullshit. This is bullshit. No, dude, because these institutions, they don't want to do this. I think what the institutions want is Canton. They want something like Canton where they can be completely private, or they want to build their own thing. I don't think that institutions are going to use this. That's like
Well,
whenever,
I
yeah.
mean, but how knowledgeable are you on the entire Plume ecosystem? As far as privacy and there being a privacy layer, and it's just, and I'm just asking, because I mean, it's
Not at all. Not at
yeah,
all.
and
Yeah.
so I mean, I don't want to come to very broad stroke conclusions, until we get through all the information. So, but I mean, I not that I
So
disagree
my
with.
no, no. So my guy, let me just restate that. My
Okay.
tells me whenever I read something saying, "Hey, we're going to get all this institutional adoption, and that's going to take care of all the inflation." It
Yeah.
makes me think, I
Yeah.
don't know. I call
I don't
BS.
I don't like ifs. I don't like wins. I don't like maybes or could. It's you really have to go off of the current state of things is what I lean towards. I 100% agree with that. So one
Yes.
thing that I found is with the staking. This was interesting. I want to throw a little bit of good in here with this. So staking and reward multipliers. Plume utilizes a staking system that goes beyond simple security. By staking Plume, you aren't just securing the network, you're participating in a tiered incentive program. So yield generation. Stakers can earn rewards from network emissions and potentially a share of protocol generated fees. Multipliers. The tokenomics reward long-term conviction. Longer lock durations provide reward multipliers and higher points, effectively giving long-term holders a larger slice of the pie as the ecosystem grows. It's if the ecosystem grows. So I want to
Right.
make but that's something I didn't know. So that is something that potentially, what we always talk about, that if this, is a successful, layer one and ecosystem, that there is mechanisms in place that share that success with token holders, potentially. And then the Nest integration and RWA yield. Plume's flagship yield protocol Nest integrates the Plume token into the RWA investment cycle. Enhanced utility. Holding or staking Plume can unlock better terms, lower fees, or exclusive access to specific tokenized asset vaults, such as private credit or US Treasuries. Direct alignment. This ensures that if the company succeeds in bringing billions, if they succeed in bringing billions of dollars in RWA TVL on chain, the Plume token remains the mandatory key to optimizing those returns. So I just wanted to throw a little bit. Oh, hold on. Here's that moat benefit. Because Plume is an SEC registered transfer agent, it is built to be the compliant choice for TradFi. The moat benefit. The tokenomics benefit from a regulatory moat as more institutions like MasterCard or Investco use Plume's infrastructure, which they do currently, through Nest Credit. The utility of Plume's token scales with the volume of regulated capital flowing through the network, which is a success metric typically reserved for private equity, now accessible via the token. you might have to explain that one to me. I don't fully understand like the moat that everyone always talks about.
Yeah, as you were reading through that, Mike, what I was doing is just, pulling up the slide deck, because, you know, for me, whenever I hear about like TradFi compliance and, a moat and, all of this cool tech, but if I'm an investor, if I'm a crypto investor and I want to, benefit in US dollar terms from all of that cool tech and whatever moat there might be, I'm always thinking to myself, how does this translate into number go up? That's what I'm always thinking about. And
Mhm.
so, like, you can tell me, or a protocol or a project can put out marketing material that tells me that, like, we partnered with this group and we're compliant with this, regulatory agency. And we are the only one that can do this. And that gives us a moat. Okay. Those things could all be true. And that's great. But how does that translate into number go up? That's the thing.
Well, and
And
that's we've touched on that. That's what we were talking about with the tokenomics and the different mechanisms that are in place through the tokenomics that potentially, not a guarantee, but more so than many of the top 10, top 20 projects on Coin Market Cap. The tokenomics on Plume is a lot better than most of those. Where there's nothing in place that would potentially other than hype and people FOMOing into them, it makes the price go up.
that's a good point. That's a good point that there are very, very few tokens that actually return revenues to token holders. And the bar has to be set high. And
Yes.
so I'm trying to figure out, where does Plume sit, against that measuring ruler?
I
Like,
like that. You know what? We might need to come up with something, like a tool or something like that AI, like people can put in a ticker and it gives it a score, based off of these, matrices that we talk about, where
right.
tokenomics and if the company is successful, is there a mechanism in place to me as a token holder where I benefit as well, and kind of a weighted score of very heavily that you benefit from that, or just in a very general sense, or I don't know. It might be something interesting to play with later down the road.
Dude, I can tell you exactly what it would tell us. Like, if you go down the top 100 tokens,
Yeah,
it would probably, I think anyway, rank
very
95
most
of
of them
them,
very low.
95 of the top
Yeah,
100, like, as just doo doo.
yeah,
So yeah, but I mean, it's difficult to analyze these tokens
yeah.
because it's so easy to analyze the protocols. Like, when you go and, like, dude, it took me 15 minutes to put together like excellent deep dive research on Plume protocol, but none of this stuff is making me think number go up for the token though. That's the thing. The only thing that drives number go up for the token is either like mass adoption,
Mhm.
or like the protocol is actually a super successful business and they return all the revenues to token holders in the form of burns or buybacks. Think hype. So there's only one hype. Maybe there are a handful of other protocols that
Mhm.
return revenues to token holders in a similar way that hype does, but there's very, very few of them that actually do that. So, to me, that means that most of crypto is either A, uninvestable, or
Mhm.
B, basically like gambling or speculation.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
I
but
just my thing is I mean, and obviously I'm a bit biased because I mean I'm invested in Plume, full disclosure, but I look at it and I see more going on with Plume, as down as it is, than again than I see in the most of the top 50 or the top 100, on Coin Market Cap, just because they have actual adoption, EtherFi. they have MasterCard, they have Nest Protocol with BlackRock. They it's actually has tokenized funds and stuff like that on there. You have Invesco, you have Fidelity. I mean, this is real adoption. That's more than most, and then you have an actual have tokenomics in place to where potentially, not guaranteed, but potentially could help the token value for us holders. So I mean, that by itself, I mean, again, this is not a guarantee it's going to go up. I'm not saying go out and buy Plume, but those two things by themselves is better than 90-95% of the tokens out there.
The thing for me though, Mike, at the end of the day, is this unlock schedule. I think that
Again, there's
yeah,
in the top 100, there's projects out there that are just as bad, if not worse.
right,
Look at Aster.
sure,
Aster, 90-95% of the tokens are held by like 5 wallets.
true,
You know,
true,
look at the
yeah,
market cap on that bitch.
right. I know 100%,
Holy shit.
100%. So that's, to me, that's just another example of an uninvestable token.
Exactly.
Like when I look at this unlock schedule, this to me is the important thing. Because if we know that the float is going to expand by an additional 37% through the
100%.
end through the end of this year,
Yeah.
then in my opinion, that right there tells
Downward
me
pressure.
that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all you need to know.
again, I'm not saying run out and buy it now, but I mean, if it dips, super hard and we hit the bottom and they keep building like they're building and keep onboarding like they're onboarding, could be, a nice little bag to get, a couple $100 or something like that if you got it. Again, we're just trying to seek out the projects with the best chance of being successful and try to weed out the ones that have no chance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing here. Again, just because we talk about a project, we're not saying run out and grab it. David's taking the bearish stance. I'm taking the bullish stance,
I'm
and we'll
saying sell it. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying sell it, don't buy it.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, not right now, but I mean, but again, if they keep onboarding, Wisdom Tree and all these different, large institutions, potentially, I mean, it could be a nice little get a little moon bag of it, depending on your risk tolerance. But and then that's true of most cryptos. I mean, in price discovery, in true price discovery, every crypto out there might be way overpriced.
Okay.
It's we could see all cryptos, all altcoins go much lower and discover that that's where their true price truly lies.
So here's something that I think we need to talk about because, you know,
Please.
um, every time I hear, someone say like, "Oh, partnership with insert well-known
Yeah.
institution here,"
I'm not a fan of that either. I want to see actual invested money, something being built, liquidity moving. Yeah, I want to see like real. Like I don't care if they were sitting on a stage at some convention. It's that speculative, bullishness. I don't like it either.
So when I see something like this for Plume protocol, where there are 180 active projects and a $25 million ecosystem fund with institutions like Wisdom Tree, Apollo Global, and Invesco, to me, this doesn't mean anything. This doesn't mean anything to me when I think about like what is the token price going to do? In fact, when I hear people say, oh, well, this protocol has a bunch of projects and ecosystem fund and big, insert institution name here have, invested in it. That honestly, Mike, makes me want to go the opposite direction. That makes me want to sell the thing or short the thing because I think that those institutions are just so big that, if they invest like $50 million in a protocol like this, number one, you have no idea exactly how that's structured. Number two, that is such a small amount of money for those institutions that it's almost meaningless for them. But it becomes an appeal to authority. So it's, this is like I'm just going to read this here, understanding the appeal to authority fallacy. So it's this cognitive shortcut. It's often referred to as a logical fallacy, where someone claims a statement must be true simply because an authority figure said it, or that, this token is good because BlackRock, or this token is good because Invesco, or whatever. Same type of deal here.
I would tend to agree if it's only based on the fact that they're making a statement about those institutions with no underlying merit, such as capital investment, real building, actual building on on the protocol or chain, those sorts of things, because then it ceases to be a call to authority, or what you called it, because the call to authority is based solely on, like, XRP and Ripple do it all the time, where they talk about that, they're in talks with, or they're negotiating with, or there's nothing solid there. It's companies talk all the time. When I was working in a tech startup, we talked with MasterCard about them potentially adopting the tech that we were building. They took us to a really nice dinner, and then we never heard from them again. It's just, that's, it's like gave us like a consolation dinner, and so it just because you're having talks with somebody doesn't mean shit. But one thing I will say is, like what I have up on the screen, is this is the Nest protocol, and this is what is being built, is built out, and actually has active TVL, and not a ton, but there is a lot more with this recent news that is coming out. And these are, what I was talking about with, Apollo and Superstate and Black Opal. These are the companies that are, as they're getting this regulation, that they're feeling more and more comfortable with onboarding, their liquidity, from their assets under management. And this is one of the places that they, one of many that they are onboarding that liquidity. And there is connections. It's not a siloed network. Plume is not just a siloed network. It has deep connections with. Let me find.
Now, Mike, is this something that we can use like, natively? Is this like a layer one where I can get like a Plume wallet and
Yeah,
create an account and
yeah,
like operate natively on the Plume chain?
yeah,
Have you done that? What's the
yeah.
experience like?
Honestly, here, I'll show you. It's a, actually, the Plume portal is a very clean, user friendly.
Why isn't it
So
pronounced Plume? Plume, Plume. I
instead of Plume B.
don't know. Plummy.
So yeah, let's go earn with Nest, and then I can connect wallet.
So, Mike, if you're doing that, we can't
Oh,
see it. Maybe you want to keep it that way, where you can't.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and Plume is integrated with BNB, with Ethereum mainnet, and Solana, and Base, for that matter. They there's connections with through Nest, with Morpho. It's, there's a lot of, this isn't a siloed network. This is actually integrating with other major players. The Plume team, they're constantly in Washington D.C. The one report that I read off, they're actually sitting in the room and helping with legislation. So they are making a very motivated effort to stay in alignment with compliance. And again, these are just all small, data points that you need to measure, that you need to do your research and figure out, the picture that paints for you. I'm just trying to give you the information. What you do with that's up to you. But when I am measuring projects, I am not just measuring against themselves. I'm measuring them against their competition. because I think we can all agree that traditional finance is moving digital. They are building and moving on to blockchain technology. The game that I'm playing is trying to find the best chance of which projects are going to be a part of those new rails, the new ecosystem. And again, not saying that Plume is one of them, but I'm watching what is being built out. And Canton, that's why I'm so bullish on Canton, is we are seeing mass adoption. We're seeing mass building. We're seeing all the major players signing up with them and actually rolling out products. So those are the things that I'm looking at. I'm willing to overlook because my risk tolerance is a bit higher on a portion of my portfolio. I'm willing to take a little bit of risk on some of these projects that are down because there's 45 million cryptos out there right now, and a lot of them, they're spending a lot of they're dumping tokens on people to pay for hype, to pay to hype up their project to get people to invest in it so that they can dump more tokens and make money off of us. And there's some projects that are focused on actually building out real products and not trying to prop up their price. So I'm trying to stay away from just watching price and trying to keep an eye on who is actually building and what they are building. So, and that's just me. And again, I'm not saying that I'm going to pick the winners. I'm just trying to increase my chances.
So, Mike, you see the slide that I've got pulled up from that research report.
There you go.
So I think this to me is the most important thing right here. So the tokenomics, right?
Mhm.
And like how many times whenever I see a flywheel, it's like, uh-oh, this is shit coinery at its finest right here. A flywheel, utility flywheel, even better. Let's throw a buzzword in there. It's the utility flywheel.
Well, let's skip over our own buzzwords and get to the meat and potatoes
Here
because
we go.
we only got 50 minutes left, and I still want to talk about backpack. So
Let's do it. So, network gas fees, validator staking, base collateral for RWA lending, and ecosystem governance with a 10 billion Plume token fixed supply. Here's the problem, though. All of this unlock going on throughout the rest of this year to take us from it's actually 5.4 billion in supply now to 7.3 billion by the end of the year. Here's the analysis. The institutional TVL growth and gas demand must create sufficient buy-side pressure to absorb the scheduled 2026 institutional and contributor unlocks. This is the bottom line.
I highly doubt that that's going to happen.
Well,
There's
then, yeah.
there's no way that I see that as early on as we are in these markets, and there just isn't the adoption on Plume, in my opinion, yet. I mean, 10, 20, 30 years in the future, if it's still around potentially. But I don't see like this year that there's going to be enough adoption that it's going to generate enough buy pressure for to pay for fees and things like that to counter the potential selling pressure of those new tokens you're talking about coming on the market. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So, for me, this is, um, you know, probably number
Price
go
goes up.
down. Yeah, that's what I think anyway.
No, I would even the little bit of bullishness I have, I would 100% agree with that.
So I guess we'll see what happens. But Mike, you want to talk about backpack? I'm
I
really
do.
interested to talk about that.
No, absolutely. All right. So actually, here I'm just going to let you keep sharing. Do you have anything you wanted to share on it? Here,
No, so
let me
I don't
introduce.
know. I don't know anything about backpack.
All right. Well, I'll introduce it real quick so you can look up some information on it. And let's see. So this is.
So what's the can you tell me, Mike, the URL for the protocol? I think that's
It's
probably a good.
backpack.exchange. That's
Oh,
where I'm at
got it.
right
It's the wallet. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I know Backpack. I
now.
thought that
Yep,
maybe it was like a different protocol, but no,
it
no,
is. It
Backpack.
is now. They launched a protocol.
Yeah, they did. Wow.
Yeah.
So what do we know about Backpack?
So, I mean, and I'm just going to dive into this, but let's see. Markets, you got PAX G Yield Boost Live. You got Spot, Futures, Lend, Vaults, their participant program, whatever that is. You got exchange data. But it says Backpack has gained significant traction as a Solana based exchange, largely because it was founded by the team behind Coral, the creators of Backpack Wallet and the Mad Lads NFT collection. Not a big fan of those NFTs, but I digress. Its approach is unique because it attempts to merge the high speed trading of DeFi with the regulatory rigor of TradFi, specifically aiming for a future IPO in the United States. So this is the BP token and tokenomics. Backpack recently launched its native token ticker BP on March 23rd of 2026. Very new token. The tokenomics are specifically designed to address the VC dumping issue and align the team's incentives with long-term company success rather than short-term price action. So the details, there's a total supply of 1 billion. Initial circulation of 20 is 25% at 250 million tokens. Airdrop distribution 24% to Backpack point holders, 1% to Mad Lads NFT holders. So the unique tokenomic pillars. Backpack's model differs from standard crypto projects in three major ways. IPO linked vesting. Unlike traditional linear unlocks where team members get tokens every month, the 37.5% of the supply is held by the corporate treasury and is fully locked until 1 year after a successful IPO. So they actually have to launch a stock, and only after a successful IPO, 1 year after, will those tokens unlock. This means the team and investors only see value if the company goes public or has an equity exit.
Hmm.
Growth triggered unlocks. Another 37.5% of the supply is not released on a timer. Instead, tokens unlock only when the platform hits specific milestones, such as obtaining new regulatory licenses, hitting user growth targets, or launching major new products. User owner staking. In a move to bridge the gap between tokens and equity, founder Armani Ferrante introduced a model where users who lock their BP tokens for 12 months can eventually exchange them for actual company shares at a fixed ratio. This is sounding interesting. What are your thoughts on those points?
Well, the first thing for me, I always like to start off by taking a look at the just the price, so
All right,
BP,
let's take a look
BP.
at that.
So, this actually the chart does
Do you want to pop
not
it up?
yeah, let me bring this up real quick. So, first thing for me, always just want to check in and take a look at the chart. And, this doesn't look bad.
No,
Um, Now, very little data.
that
We
actually looks very similar to the launch of Canton.
so this pattern is a bull flag. That's what this pattern is. And just the fact that it hasn't dumped is a good thing. Just right there. Now, if I go ahead and so if I go ahead and throw down some
All right,
support,
hold on. Let me write this down.
yeah,
Dumping bad.
dumping bad. So I mean, because that's what most of these, crypto assets do is
Yeah.
they launch and they dump and then they don't come back. Dead,
No, dude.
DED.
Look at that huge green candle. There was a pullback. That's healthy, but it has an upward trend.
Yeah, just very little data. And,
Yes.
the problem for me here is we're sitting at support. So, a break support and then the next level of support comes in, quite a bit lower, like 16% lower. So, need to hold support, or at least need to see this thing like form some type of a channel. So if we just draw this in here, and then if I clone this real quick, we could create a bit of a channel. So if it just starts bouncing around from this as the low and this as the high, like, between 12 cents and like 17 cents, okay, great. Because if all the rest of, crypto is, swinging wildly and mostly to the downside, but this one is just in a channel, BP, if it just forms a channel, great,
Mm.
awesome. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing for me here, Mike, is I put together as you were speaking, I put together some research on Backpack
Well,
and on the
check this out
token.
real quick.
Mhm.
Just right before you go into that. So I pulled this on DeFi Llama, and this is the TVL since launch.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Definitely, growth in TVL, that is super important. Um, So now that I've got that deep research on Backpack, I just went ahead and threw it into a brand new notebook over here in Notebook LM. And then
Mm.
what we're going to be able to do, just like we did for the other protocol, Plume, we're going to be able to go through and ask questions of this research. So this will be really interesting. Let me just, as we're waiting here, I just want to go through and generate the infographic, the slide deck, and the video content. And now I can actually zoom in here a little bit and we can just take a look at this together. Okay, so what questions do you want to ask, Mike, about the Backpack token or tokenomics? What do you
I
think?
I want to know. I mean, it's what we've been asking of a lot of these projects lately. Is how does me buying the token? Is there a tokenomics or mechanism in place to where I get a share of the if it is profitable? Is there something that that incentivizes me to buy the token? Other than just hope that it gets hyped enough that price goes up.
Got it in some way. So let's just see here. I just asked it, tell me about the tokenomics and how the protocol revenues can accrue to token holders in some way. So what it's doing is it's just going through that research report that I produced using Google Gemini Deep Research. So just think about how quickly we were able to, over the last 1 hour and 20 minutes, produce deep dive research and learning materials on two completely different protocols. Like
Leering.
leering. Yeah, there's a lot of leering going on here. And
Yes.
you gonna leer.
Yeah. You
the
just got leered.
you just got leered. So the native token is BP, which has a hard cap maximum of 1 billion tokens. So, another thing here is we've got to check out the tokenomics. And right now, they have released, Backpack has released 25% of the supply. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through and reading more about
So,
the,
so that float you were talking about,
yeah, low float.
yeah.
Yeah, low float. So, just that's always something that I'm thinking about. What does the float look like? And so, token distribution, the supply is designed to align, it says, user interest with the long term success of the platform. That's always a good thing. I'm on the lookout for any venture capital stuff because that's usually not good. So, phase one, the token generation event on March 23rd, 2026, 25% of the supply was distributed entirely to the community. 240 million tokens were airdropped to users. Oh, dude, based on trading volume points. Okay, so because I used to use Backpack exclusively on Solana because
Mhm.
Backpack Wallet, I don't know if this is still true, but over the last couple of years, I think it's still true. Backpack is the only wallet where I could use my Trezor, on Solana. So
Okay.
I really, I had to use Backpack because I couldn't use any other wallet, and I liked it. My user experience using Backpack was great.
Well,
Um,
and it's a multi-chain wallet. It says Backpack Wallet, a multi-chain X NFT wallet that allows apps to run natively within the wallet interface.
awesome, yeah. I mean that's good news. So 240 million tokens were airdropped to users based on trading volume points. 10 million were allocated to Mad Labs NFT holders. 0% of this initial unlock went to founders or VCs. That's a good thing. You
Well,
know,
and that's what I covered before. Was that they're pushing hard on the no VC dumping, the fair launch. And we're starting to see that a lot more. That's what we covered with Canton was they did a fair launch. There was no VCs. VCs, that kind of thing, got no tokens. The team got no tokens. All tokens were released out into circulation, and that's just their model. And I think we're going to start seeing this more and more.
so think about how much different this model is compared to, the traditional time-based vesting or unlock schedules that we see for just about every other token. This is completely different, and this is better. This is just better. And you know
Especially
why?
for us that are buying these tokens.
Right. And I think it could be showing up in the price because the fact that they had their TGE and it didn't just dump, that's a really good sign. Like, the price is, in my opinion, the most important thing, or at least, right up there as one of the most important things. So look at phase two and phase three, though. And Mike, this is what you were talking about. So 37.5% of the BP tokens are reserved for future distribution, which is triggered by specific regulatory and product milestones rather than standard time based vesting. That is really cool because it's almost unique in crypto. Like the type of vesting and unlock schedules that we usually see are just based, over some period of time. But this is based on specific product milestones. So, I think that could be a net positive. And then the remaining 37.5% is held on the company's balance sheet and will be locked until at least 12 months after a successful IPO. Okay, great. So, this is a new way of, launching a token and managing the unlock schedule. So now that we know a little bit about the tokenomics, let's take a look at the value accrual and holder incentives. So, it says here, Backpack utilizes an equity hook and a staking participant program to accrue value to Backpack holders. So here's the equity conversion. And I think you were talking about this, Mike. The most unique feature is that users who stake their Backpack for a minimum of a year can convert their tokens into actual Backpack company equity at a fixed ratio. Uh-oh. How is the Clarity Act going to treat that? You know what I mean? Like,
And that's valid because is it going to say that that constitutes a contract, which is one of the pillars of the Howey test, for a security?
I don't know. I don't know, but my concern with, this new regulation that seems to be up in the air, the language seems to be up in the air for now. But my concern is that, a company like Backpack, a team of builders in this emerging space, if they are told overnight by Congress, hey, what you've built is actually illegal now, well,
Yeah.
then, dude, it's going to drive a lot of extremely valuable individuals and companies out of the United States, out
Mhm.
of Europe, and towards South America and Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just like I'm always thinking about that because, like, hey, if if I can come up with like a really, really cool financial product and it would benefit a lot of people, but it doesn't benefit big banks or corrupt politicians,
Mhm.
then like, dude, who's actually benefiting? So it says this program accounts for 20% of the company's total equity pool. It literally turns token holders into traditional shareholders. Is that going to be legal under this new clarity legislation?
That's the key. I know, and trust me, I love this.
I
I mean,
love it
if
too.
if it if it doesn't end up getting them in trouble with the powers that be, this is sexy as shit. If I can invest in the token, I can stake it and earn, and it gives me an equity share in the company when they do an IPO, and they do, basically an airdrop of their stock, is what I'm reading. That fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm thinking that this should, or that at least I hope to see more projects that do stuff like this because,
Yeah.
dude, like actually having equity rather than having like basically a Fugazi token, like give me the equity, man.
Well,
Like
dude, that's what we always talk about with XRP is that the court case, where it was ruled to not be a security. That was bullish as shit for Ripple. It was that. I mean, we all celebrated it. I was a token holder at the time. We all celebrated it because we were told that the price was going to go up, and when it didn't, that's when I started digging. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I educated myself and figured out that it wasn't bullish that XRP is not a security, because that's what potentially was going to give it its value. Whereas, it not being a security, Ripple can dump XRP because they have no legal obligation to token holders. So this is sexy as shit.
yeah, and I'm just taking a look at the rest of it. It says IPO access. So long-term backpack stakers are rewarded with priority allocations for primary market entry during the company's future IPO. Okay, great. That's a good thing. If you're
Yeah.
looking for equity in backpack, then awesome. And it says here the ecosystem employs flywheel alert,
Uh,
flywheel alert.
David
So
David had a half chub and he lost it. he read flywheel and he was like, "Ooh."
flywheel. And so it
Yeah.
says they employ a mad lads flywheel, and that's another red flag is like whenever you see, or at least for me, whenever I see a protocol that has like a weird name, um, that's a
Well, I don't
yeah,
think that's a protocol. I think that's those like cartoon NFTs collection.
even worse.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay,
Actually,
where,
here, I'll pull
yeah,
one up quick.
what do they look like?
I'm gonna pull one up real quick.
Mike, are you really in the chat saying all the smart people like Ada and XRP, bro?
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
yeah. No, they were asking. They said that they heard that I was selling some of my alts, and I've been announcing it in our Discord before I do. But I sold, my Ondo. I sold my, most of my Casper, and a bunch of other ones because I'm getting into USDC, because I honestly believe what David's been saying, that we're going to see more downside. So I want to hedge my losses, and when we get that next leg down, then I'm going to have dry powder to buy in good projects at lower prices.
So here's the thing about cash. Cash is a zero strike option with no expiration date. So
So here's
cash,
here's
yeah.
Mad Lads.
Okay.
That's
Can you believe that people were paying millions of dollars for this?
Dude. Even as ignorant as I was on crypto when the whole NFT craze was going on, I was just shaking my head because people were buying these things for tens of millions of dollars. Not these, but like the Bored Apes and stuff like that. They were tens of millions of dollars for an NFT that is basically a picture. And it's I was and then like the metaverse, buying like digital, real estate, in the metaverse. I was like, am I missing something here? Am I the idiot? Because I did not get in on it. Thank God I didn't.
I
Like
mean,
Justin Bieber bought one for, I think it was like 16 million, and it's worth like 14 grand now.
why is it even worth 14 grand?
I yeah,
Like,
that's the more important question,
why isn't it worth like $4?
yeah,
Maybe I'll give you 40 cents for it. 40 cents.
right.
Like, yeah, something like that. So now that we've got this other content, Mike, ready to go, let's take a look at this because just because I was dumping on the Mad Lads flywheel here, it says where a portion of the exchange trading fees are routed back to buy back Mad Lads NFTs from the floor. These are, ugh, dude. So
Yeah,
they're taking protocol revenues and buying those NFTs back.
buying
The-
back shit.
These are
Well,
then
maybe this is, and I'm going to try to put a silver lining on this. maybe this is to try to make up for the freaking underperformance of these things, because they want to try to, it might be a PR thing. It might be that, the NFT thing was a total shit show and a shit box, and they're trying to make an effort to make it up to their community. That's the best silver lining I can put on it.
I mean, so if you take a pig, right, and then you put lipstick on that pig, it doesn't suddenly become a princess, right? It's still a pig with lipstick on it. Like, so this is a really interesting, new way of launching a token. I really like this though. The token distribution
Yeah.
is not linear based on time. It's based on certain events or milestones that need to be reached. And hey, that's a new
David,
way.
hold on 1 sec. We need a
Yeah,
moment of silence for Nick. He
a
says
moment.
XRP is his biggest holding, and he feels
Oh,
personally attacked by us. And he's just joking, but
we need to
but
call a yeah. Let's call a wambulance. A
yeah,
wambulance, and maybe you
moment of
can
silence.
you
Moment of
can
silence.
you go to your safe space.
Hold on. Moment of silence.
Oh, okay.
All right, continue.
Have you seen, Mike, at some of these like some of these like big tech companies, they've literally got like safe space pods where like
Oh yeah.
where I
Let's
think they're
yeah
like yeah, maybe we need that for some XRP holders, man.
yeah right.
The cope is real, man. The cope is real. So check this out. We've got some interesting content now on Backpack, and so I really do want to take a look at this because, you know, um, just because they've got some association with an NFT platform, it's not necessarily a horrible thing. Okay, it's not. But let's take a look at this. Building post FTX. Okay, so I did see that in the research that Backpack Wallet was impacted by FTX in some way, but I'm not quite sure exactly how. Um, so it says here, and Mike, can we all see this? I just want to make sure this
Yeah
is, yes,
yeah
this is
yeah.
flowing well.
Yeah, we see it.
Awesome. So traditional exchange infrastructure forces a compromise between capital efficiency and security. Okay, so the legacy centralized exchange is opaque, of course. A legacy DEX is, many of them are fragmented decentralization. That's true, but many of them are also pretty well decentralized. So I guess it depends on which one you're talking about. And then now this is Backpack, the integrated financial operating system. So that's interesting. Links high frequency trading with mathematical certainty of solvency. Okay. And okay, so it looks like they're trying to marry the decentralization of a DEX with the speed of a centralized exchange. Oh, okay, great. A lot of protocols have attempted to solve for this. Okay, so it says the fat wallet thesis relies on an interconnected triad of exchange, custody, and culture. Okay, so you've got the Backpack Exchange, and that's a cross margin liquidity trading protocol. Awesome, great. And then I think so. This exchange, Mike, this is a custodial exchange? Is it? Is it not? I think it is, right? It's a
That I do not know. Let me look that up real quick.
is this a decentralized exchange or a custodial exchange? It looks to me, Mike, like a decentralized exchange. Just by I'm sharing now the Backpack Exchange. I'm not quite sure if this is a DEX or a centralized exchange, but
It says Pack is a hybrid model that aims to give you the best of both worlds. Whether it is a non-custodial depends entirely. All right. So the backpack wallet is self-custodial, of course. You hold your keys. The backpack exchange is centralized but self-custody inspired. The backpack exchange is a centralized exchange, but is built with a post FTX philosophy. This means that while it is technically custodial, they manage the order book and hold assets to facilitate high speed trading. They use technologies to minimize the risks usually associated with centralized exchanges.
got it.
MPC, multi party computation. Instead of a single hot wallet where a rogue employee could steal funds, they use MPC technology that splits the key into several pieces held by different parties. Proof of reserves. They provide daily verifiable proof that they actually hold the assets users have deposited. Sub account isolation. In early 2026, they introduced features that allow users to run trading bots like grid bots directly on platform while maintaining a more direct claim to their specific assets via their unified risk engine. So it says if your goal is total self custody, where not your keys, not your coins applies, you should keep your assets in the backpack wallet. If you want to trade with high liquidity futures or use their native BP token features, you move those funds onto the exchange where they are held custodially under their Dubai, VARA, and EU licenses.
Got it. Got it. See, that's the thing. Notice the licenses. They didn't say, United States of America
Yeah,
licenses because can't get them. Can't get
yeah,
them.
they don't exist.
They don't exist. That's not good. But I see in the chat that Nick's talking about holding Doge from 2 cents. I mean, hey man, if we just take a look at Doge just real quick over on the Backpack Exchange, you can actually see that there's quite a bit of liquidity over here. Like, 700 and some odd K. That's the volume actually. And open interest, 3.6 million in Doge. This must be in Doge, not in dollars. There we go, US dollars. So 337K in open interest on this Doge contract is not bad. Like that's actually pretty liquid. Um, and the thing for me about some of these tokens, though, if we take a look at Doge and we zoom out, Doge has a really interesting pattern. So this is just for Nick real quick. So if we take a look at Doge, I want more data, MOAR data. So we need all of the data. There we go. Is this all of it? I don't think so. So I want for Doge USD. I'm really looking for, all of the data that I can get my hands on, because I know that this one goes back much, much further. And I wanted to be able to share the pattern, but that's okay. So we can just start right here. So this pattern in Bitcoin terms, because I think that's really what's most important here. Look at how interesting this looks. It's like the same type of repeating pattern over and over again in Bitcoin terms for Doge. So, this is it's really interesting to see this, right? Here you've got your all-time high in Bitcoin terms. You've got a lower high, you've got a lower high, and now we've got a lower low, a lower low, a lower low. So, yeah, this is Doge in Bitcoin terms. Now, if I just take a look at Doge USDT, like the Binance contract, Doge in US dollar terms, if I were holding this one from, a couple of pennies back here, maybe you got in before the pump. Well, do you think it's going to pump again? What would be required for it to pump again like this? We would need, a lot of hype. We would need a lot of new market entrants. We would need a lot more adoption of Bitcoin and other larger digital assets in order to get people into the ecosystem and make them excited about some type of a meme like Doge. In the absence of that, I would expect number go down. So, if you're willing to hold for a long period of time, that's perfectly okay. Look, I don't have a crystal ball, obviously. Okay. I can't say, I think I lost it. I had one the other day, but it's gone now. I don't know where any asset is going. It's impossible to know. But there are certain patterns that, repeat over and over and over again for these digital assets and, just about every asset. So just wanted to, pause there for a second and address what Nick was saying in the chat about, XRP and about Doge, and just, provide some value in the form of some technical analysis real quick. But we can bring it back on over here to Backpack, Mike. I've got, yeah.
Real quick, I just want to share this. I found this on Backpack. It has the stats. So total volume 437 billion, total open interest 86 million, total lent 250 million, total borrowed about 45.5 million. And then you got the assets under custody, total lent, total borrowed, lend rates, total volume, open interest, liquidations, number of trades, annualized funding rate. So a lot of cool data that they share. And then here's the reserves. You can actually looks like they have a dashboard for their reserves, and it actually breaks down what they have in their reserves.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now at the backpack protocol itself at the lend borrow market
Uh-huh.
because that is a unique feature set that you don't see all that often um, on these different perp dexes. So this is actually really, really cool. Now I need to play around with this. I think I'm actually going to trade on this and like give it a shot. But the reason why I'm so interested in this is the combination of a lend borrow protocol and a futures protocol means that you can execute some really interesting, delta neutral statistical arbitrage plays and interest rate arbitrage plays. So you can do some really cool stuff when you marry the lend borrow with the futures. So that's why I'm interested in this, quite a bit. If I take a look here at Pax Gold, right? Pax G, I could isolate this. This is basically an incentive yield. Look at that. You see that incentive yield, Mike? Let me see
Yeah.
if I can zoom in here a little bit. So it's 30%, 30% in incentives on Pax G. I'm just zoomed all the way in so that we can see this. So 30% in incentives on Pax G. I think that this is probably, what is this going to be paid in? This is, unlock, earning, unused, Pax G, how it works, trade spot to generate volume, unlock higher Pax G earning capacity, USDT, USD volume is excluded, your Pax G, only lent Pax G earns yield, remaining, oh wow, you can use your gold as collateral? Dude, so does this mean that, oh wow, this is really cool because if I can use my Pax G as collateral, then I could just get short futures against my Pax G collateral and essentially isolate that 30% incentive yield. That is really, really cool. So let's just take a look at the futures then. Can I trade gold on this? Guess you can, and they've got some there's 3.5, so there's low seven figures of liquidity on here. That's good. That's really good. So here's Pax G, right? So here's the play. What's the funding APY? So what is profit APY? What the hell is that? Profit APY? Earn extra USD lending rewards, combined APY, stablecoin APY. Okay, we'll take a look at that later. I'm looking for funding. Oh my goodness. Is this so? That's just the 24-hour change. Here's funding. Annualized looks like a positive 10%. So that means if I get short Pax G over here on Backpack, and if I'm able to use my Pax G in the lend borrow market as collateral, then if I put up $1,000 of Pax G and then get short $1,000 notionally of futures, Pax G futures against it, then I'm delta neutral. So what have I done? I've isolated this 30% incentive yield and plus the funding, this funding rate of like almost 11%. So that's a way to do 40%.
44%.
Yeah, you can do like 40% delta neutral on gold over here on this backpack exchange. This is cool, man. This is cool.
I might have
Um,
to talk to you about that when you got some time because I got that I got that liquidity kind of sitting on the sidelines. It might be a good one.
liquidity,
Liquidity.
liquidity. Yeah, so I mean that is pretty cool, man. I like that. Just the fact that there is this lend borrow market built in. That's
Hmm.
really cool. And the fact that you can it looks like you can use this as collateral. It looks
Well,
like you can use this as collateral.
one thing I want to point out, and this kind of goes back to we're getting where we have about 15 minutes left, but I kind of want to tie all this together. What David just found is a testament to what we've been talking about here when it comes to like interoperability and these different protocols and different chains, allowing liquidity and some of the tokenized RWAs that you can buy in different places, and being able to like say lend out an asset, and then on that lend be able to borrow against that, and maybe it's on different protocols, maybe it's on different chains, there's because like Nest, like we were talking about with Plume, you can buy in alpha. There's in alpha vaults on Morpho, so you can buy that on Nest. You can go over to Morpho and take out a loan against it, and and there's a lot of different things that you can do, and that is what I'm bullish on when it comes to DeFi, when it comes to RWAs, and the future of this stuff is finding these opportunities like David just found, and it doesn't always have to exist on the same platform. You can actually do these things because if you're holding them in your wallet, then you can do different DeFi plays on different platforms. Investing in some of these different assets. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but David,
No,
I mean,
dude, yeah, 100%. So, Mike, what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for a market, a futures market, where there is a really high funding rate, where I
mhm,
can also deposit that asset in the futures market as
yeah,
collateral in the lending markets here. So
mhm,
notice there are very few, well, not few, but there's what is this, like a dozen, something like that, lending markets on this, backpack exchange.
yeah, yeah,
And so, but there are many, many more futures markets than there are lending markets. And so, if I'm trying to isolate a funding rate, then I need to be able to deposit that asset as collateral to get delta neutral. So,
gotcha.
if I can't deposit the asset, then I can't harvest the funding rate. So, like a funding rate, an hourly funding rate of 0.02%, that's 170% APY. So
Ugh,
yeah, I know. So this is I don't even know what FOGO is. But if I could deposit FOGO as collateral and then trade futures against it, I could isolate that funding rate, which would be pretty cool. Unfortunately, can't trade future or can't deposit that as collateral in the lending market.
yeah,
So
yeah,
wouldn't be able to execute that trade. But if I'm sorting here by funding, then what I'm really looking for are digital assets with a high funding where I can deposit them as collateral. So just keep this list in the back of your mind as we take a look down through the futures funding. So Curve can't do any of these. So here's ETH, and this is the funding rate 0.001% on the hourly. Let's just take a look. So the funding is only 10.95. It looks like that might be because this is the second time I've seen this, the annualized funding at 10.95%. So here's one thing that I would need to do, Mike, before depositing any assets onto this exchange. I would need to, where are there documents? There it is, documents. So I don't necessarily need, so trading docs, guide, API doc. I'm going to go to the guide first because I'm not necessarily looking for like API documentation, not yet. All I want to find out is when you deposit into a lend borrow protocol attached to like a perp stacks, usually they give you like a certain amount of that collateral that you can trade against as initial margin or maintenance margin. So here's an example. If you deposit $10,000 of any token into a lend borrow market, then the perp stacks side of that protocol might give you 60% of that 10K as margin to be able to trade. Or it might give you 30%, or it might give you 90%. It depends on the asset. So what I want to find out is if I deposit, whatever that asset was with that. It was gold. It was PAX G.
Oh, PAX G.
Yeah, if I deposit PAX G, how much margin, how much initial margin would I get for every dollar? So that's what I'm trying to find out here in the documents. So just going through the guide, welcome, onboarding, borrow, lend. There we go. And lending, manual lend. Okay, so let's see here. What do we have? Auto lend, redeeming. Okay, backpack. So what I'm looking for out of this is I want to know like margin. How much margin do I get for every dollar that I lend? Because if I can supply PAX G, but I can't, use that as margin to trade, then that entire, trade that I just cooked up,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that
entire thesis falls apart.
it just goes away. Yeah. So Backpack it says Backpack's cross margin account equity used to open and maintain positions uses one wallet per sub account. Net equity comes from collateral, unrealized P&L, and unsettled balances minus borrow liability. Okay, so so maybe risks, lender risks. You may receive USD value instead of your original token. Borrower is liquidated, right? But it's not telling me about margin. Okay, let's see here. You've got a single cross-margined account to access all products. Yes, yes. So that must mean that I can supply PAX G as collateral in the lending market and use that as margin to trade in the futures market. That's what I wanted to find out. Okay, so it says you can use a variety of non-USD assets as collateral. All right, so Backpack uses a single. It allows you to trade all products. If you want to isolate risk, create a new sub account. Perfect. So here's how I would structure that trade. I would, number one, hop on over here to the Backpack protocol. And I'm just going to go ahead and sign up real quick. And as I sign up, Mike, I'm going to share this other tab just so that I don't.
We'll do this while you do that.
Yeah, here I'm just signing up for the thing real quick, and I just want to see what it looks like in practice to use this, because user experience is important.
Actually, you know what? While you're doing that, I will do this. So since we're getting towards the end of the show, as soon as David's done wrapping up what he's talking about now, I just want to share real quick. If you are interested, if you want to find us on YouTube, we are at the Node Network, all one word. If you want to join the chat, ask questions, tell us how we're wrong about when we're talking about projects, which we highly encourage. We're not like most channels out there. We don't believe in echo chambers. So please come on over here and contribute to the conversation. You can find us over on X at the Node Channel, all one word, and our official website, thenode.pro, where you can find all of our different offerings. Both, much of it is at no cost to you as far as education at DeFi University, and a bunch of our other offerings. And then, of course, we have some of our paid stuff as well. So if you want to come over here and if you find value in those things, you ready, David?
Yeah. So check this out, Mike. Backpack just lost me, bro. Unfortunately, they're asking me to KYC. Yeah. So they lost it, bro. I refuse. I will not KYC.
That's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning. Is they are that very much trying to align themselves with being compliant, with potential regulations that are coming down the pipe. So I mean, it makes sense, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but it makes sense that they would make you KYC, because I can pretty much guarantee that KYC and AML for a protocol, for a DeFi protocol, or any offering to be compliant, and especially in the US, is they're going to have KYC and AML.
So I like what Jay's saying in the chat. No to KYC, but yes to KFC.
Yeah.
I love that, dude.
I
No,
don't know.
that
I'm a Popeyes. I'm a
I
Popeyes.
like Popeyes too. I like
I'm
Popeyes too, man.
about me some Popeyes. You know, I love
Yeah.
me a spicy chicken Sammy from Popeyes.
Yeah, me too, man. But yeah, no to KYC. KYC AML. I mean, look, bro, that's just for stealing money from us through taxes. That's all it's for.
Yeah.
It's not to, that's literally the
It,
only
it,
reason why that
it doesn't
exists.
give any more security to us or any benefits to us. It is 100% to identify who you are, so they know who to come and rob.
100%. 100%. And so I will not comply. I refuse. And
Yeah,
I'm not going to pass any KYC. And so that really sucks, man, because it looks like Backpack has built a pretty cool product, but it doesn't matter if they put it behind some, government KYC wall. So
yeah,
that's a real shame. That's a real shame because so whenever I see a perp stacks that has this lend borrow, functionality built into it, that's great. They call these things like super apps or super dApps. I think we're going to see more and more of those being built. But again, here's the problem, Mike. Like, where are those going to be built? Are they going to be built in the United States? Because if this Clarity Act and this legislation makes it onerous for innovators to build new cool stuff because you got to follow a bazillion lines of legislation, and that requires a lot of money and attorneys, and like, when really code is law in this space and anyone with a laptop can build something amazing. But if that gets regulated out of the United States, dude, like, it's horrible. It doesn't have to be that way.
well, and I might not be a fan of the and this will be my closing thoughts, but I might not be a fan on the platform itself, but do I see potential in the token? Possibly. I really like their fair launch. I really, really like, kind of their vesting schedule, because it's not really a schedule. It's based off performance. It's based off of how well the protocol does. So, a lot of those tokens are locked unless they have an IPO. But again, the red flag that you potentially pointed out, where they have, if you lock your BP for over a year, that potentially, as long as it's in compliance and doesn't go against, unregistered security and SEC violations, potentially, you could earn, shares in, or stock in the company for locking your BP for over a year. So there's excuse me, there's some things to potentially be bullish on the token. And if you don't care about KYC and AML and stuff like that, there's opportunities that David pointed out with PaxG, and being able to do some, an advanced strategy to lock in that 30-40% that he was talking about. But if you're as principled as David is, which I respect, that it's not all about money. It's sometimes it's about your values and about what you stand for. Then and that's kind of why our channel is run the way it is I'm very principled about integrity and about transparency. I hate echo chambers. I want good solid information being put out, that we're not paid or incentivized to talk about anything. It's good. It's part of what I think is being a man, is knowing what you stand for, what you believe in, and being able, being willing to stand on that, no matter what comes. So that's my final thoughts. David, what's your final thoughts?
I agree with that. Those are my final thoughts, man.
All
I
right.
mean, like, yeah, dude, the KYC AML stuff is just bullshit, unfortunately. And it's really a shame to see that come to crypto, because there's no reason for it to come to crypto. And I just want to see innovation here in the United States. That's what I want to see. And if the regulation drives innovators overseas, well, it's going to be kind of like the United States of America, us shooting ourselves in the foot. This is like the developing industry that we need to own. And if people who are builders and developers get regulated out of the United States, it's an avoidable own goal. And so I would like to see innovation here. And that means, regulation needs to be very, very easy. So we'll see what happens with this Clarity Act. But from what I can tell, it doesn't look too hot so far, just judging based on the SEC CFTC Suite 16 that they,
Mhm.
judged from on high to be,
Judge their commodities, and
like
it's
what?
basically a shit basket of freaking projects, in my opinion.
Complete garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
those are my
of
final
course,
thoughts.
but you know what? Of course, they're seeing them as commodities because there's no connection. On all the ones I looked at, there's no connection between the success of the company and the price of the token. There's no, nothing that where the company is sharing their revenue, with the token holders. So, they're not securities. They're more akin to a commodity.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It just it seems just completely arbitrary, made up
It is.
by people who do not have our best interests in heart, in mind. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to the red pill tonight, though. That's going to be a lot of
No,
fun.
absolutely. No, and definitely. So after this, I believe Jeff has a
Jeff,
blockchain has a
it's going to be
blockchain.
great.
Yep, is going to be not going live, but his show is going to be going. And then at 1 p.m. Pacific, David and Ellie will be going live. And David's going to do his market wrap up for about 15-20 minutes. And then him and Ellie are going to go through and continue her education on and coaching, through David's one-on-one program. And so I highly encourage you to check that out because that is usually a paid service, and he's walking her through it and showing what it is that he does in that
So
program.
you know what Ellie's going to do today? Ellie's going to trade perps. You're going to
She's going
see
to leer.
she's going to leer. You're going to see Ellie trade. That's what's going to happen today.
Yeah, there you go. CLE Trade. And that's
Mhm.
her new handle.
There you go.
So, and then after that, of course, tonight at 6 p.m., we'll be going live with the Red Pill. So I'm going to be busting out a bottle of wine, smoke it if you got it, and we're going to be talking about, I don't know what yet, but it's going to be something spissy.
It's going to be great, man. Muy picante.
Yeah. Muy caliente. All right.
Oh,
So until then, Veteran Crypto out.
peace.